Hey peeps, welcome to my behind the scenes video series where the hair is big and the shirts are funky. Today we're talking about episode 3, I Don't Work Here. Now, before we get into it, spoiler alert. If you have not seen the show and you don't want to be burdened with knowledge, go check it out and come back. Okay. Now getting right into it. This episode is particularly personal for me because, as you can imagine, I get mistaken for Indian all the time. So I thought this would be a really comedically interesting and unique perspective because I've never seen anything like this on on an episodic. Send it to me if it exists, but I feel like specifically like shout out to my ethnically ambiguous brothers and sisters out there, because I think a lot of people don't realize we unfortunately have to deal with racism and problematic thinking for groups that we don't even belong to. It's bad enough to get it for being black or whatever your ethnic background is, but then on top of that to be called slurs and all these other things from groups that you're not even in. That's a real thing. At least it's happened to me. It's happened to other ethnically ambiguous people I've talked to, and so I thought it was interesting enough to touch on in this episode. Obviously there's much more to say on the subject, and I would love to expand even more on what we did in this episode. So hopefully we can do that when the show gets picked up. Now, opening into this scene, I'd love a good bit, and we do this a couple times in the show, a good bit that leads into the episode and doesn't necessarily have anything to do with like the meat and potatoes of the episode itself. So, here it's this whole crossing the street bit, and, Polly is so green to New York that she won't jaywalk essentially, and Pizza sees a New Yorker and it's just like not having it, and so that tension, just for a funny minute or two, I think is like super funny, and then we get into it. But that's life. When you're walking about, you're not always talking about the exact same subject or exactly like what you're going to do. It's there are bits and randomness and silliness that happens all the time, at least in conversations that I have. I don't know about y'all, but that's how I roll. Now, I had to call and visit so many delis and bodegas, people, to like get this like location locked down. So many I couldn't even tell you. It was definitely a challenge, and I was afraid because we didn't have anything locked in until like days before like the shoot date. So I was really rolling the dice that we were going to be able to find something and make it work. So we found this, the deli that we used, had to pay them, but they had to stay open. So that presented a whole bunch of issues with people wanting to know what was going on, if anybody famous was there, and then being upset that none of us were, to like the sounds of like the grill and the cash register and people talking and the hum of the refrigerators. I mean, a whole slew of things. And we got through it, and we, you have the wonderful episode that you have there, but it was definitely a struggle to get through that. But we still had a lot of fun. And we shot there from like evening to maybe about 2 o'clock in the morning or so was when we wrapped it up. So they were very generous about letting us stay until we finished everything. And we got through it. But hey, look, nobody, unless like it's extremely unique in the way that you do it, nobody wants to see a show where there's just one backdrop. And for me, I didn't want to have a show that takes place in New York and not, show that, so we have the house, but we also have like restaurants and bars and bodegas and the subway, and it adds to the production value, I think, but also to the real feel of the show. You feel like you're actually watching real people, get into some wacky, crazy things, but like, you're able to buy into the show, I think, a little more with the locations we're able to get. So worth the hassle. One of my favorite moments, I think, in the whole series is this section here where, Pete's like, oh, and everybody thinks I'm, Indian. And Polly goes, well, I didn't realize you were black until I saw all your Shea Moisture products in the bathroom. And Pete goes, wow, well, I knew I was ambiguous. And she stops him and it's like, no, it's not ambiguous. You just look Indian. First off, I've had that like exact conversation pretty much often. And on top of that, it is just something that I think really captures the essence of what this show is, and it's a unique perspective. Obviously, there's so much more to it, but that is a really poignant moment. I think that is really indicative of what you can expect from this show and the type of things that we're saying. Also, this like Malcolm X moment that Pete has with Polly, that's relatively tame compared to how triggering like this sort of thing can be. I had to be very careful not to be too dramatic or let this get too serious, because I didn't want anybody to be like super triggered. I want people to identify and understand and even empathize, but I don't want to like upset anybody. But this is a very real thing, wanting to be acknowledged and respected as who you are and what you are. Pete can't change, the way he looks to a certain extent. And he wants to be happy with that, and he wants everyone to respect him as such. I mean, look, it's not about being anti-Indian or anything else. Even for me personally, as much as I'm confused for all these other things or whatever, I don't necessarily take it as an insult unless somebody clearly means it that way. But it's about wanting to be acknowledged and accepted and in the community that you belong to. As he says, and as I wrote, I got enough negative stereotypes to deal with as a black man. I don't need anybody else's on top of that. It's a very real thing. And I'd be happy to, I could do a whole thing just on that, but let's move on. We have this funny recurring bit of Pete, exclaiming like powerful black women. I think, oh my God, is so overdone and boring that I wanted to find a way to express, excitement or aggravation or whatever. And I think like an oh my God, like when you say that, that's like you're exasperated, and maybe saying that like calms you down a little bit. So maybe Pete is using powerful black women to try to calm himself down. That thought is calming to him, someone like Oprah or Ava DuVernay or something like that. So you hear that throughout the series of him using those names. Also, another reason, the sisters never get enough credit. I think somebody like Shonda Rhimes and Ava DuVernay and Oprah and every other powerful black woman in the world needs an extra little shout out, because damn, good for you for breaking these glass ceilings, ladies. So shout out to all the powerful black women in the world, to all the black women in the world. Now from the start, moving forward to this visual gag that we have of Pete bringing up these things, the cornbread, the Kool-Aid, and the watermelon up from nowhere. We bring it, into frame. I knew from the start, I wrote it in that, they come literally out of nowhere, because I knew visually that was going to be comedically funny. I mean, it's like something that's existed since the dawn of filmmaking, I guess, but also, it's about trying to throw the racism back at them and sort of we surprise the audience in the same way that we surprise these customers and the deli owner, and trying to, show them that they're the ones that are being problematic. But of course, such is life. Nobody wants to hear it. You become the bad guy, and, you get blamed for being, problematic. It's you, it's your fault. You're angry, like whatever. And so I wanted to kind of hit that at a funny angle and do that stuff. And it makes me laugh every time I watch it to this day, like watching the cornbread and the Kool-Aid, and especially like the watermelon come out of nowhere. And by the way, how we did that was the assistant director, Alexandra, was like underneath me, like handing me the things or like throwing them up so I can kind of, in a one fluid motion, kind of bring it into frame and then like drop it back down. So I was extremely scared to like hit her in the face or something like that with like the watermelon. Luckily we didn't have any issues. Everything was safe. And it was her idea. She wanted to, go down there and be responsible for that. So shout out to Alexandra for being brave enough to do it and for making that funny bit possible. But yeah, we were scared. At least I was. And then if you missed it, we have a little fun bonus scene midway through the credits here. So I recommend, if you have seen the episode and missed that, go back and check it out. Watch the whole episode over again so you get it fresh. If you haven't seen it, make sure you stick all the way through the credits for that. But that's it in a nutshell, folks. I just want to say real quick, shout out to some of the actors that were involved. So shout out to Natalie Vero, who played Customer 1, Elizabeth McKenna, who played Customer 2, and Suraj Huda, who played the deli owner. They came on and they loved this idea, and they were super funny the entire time, like just crushed it. There was a little bit of improv going on, and Suraj to this day, because he believes that, I think he wholeheartedly believes that I am actually Indian, even though I tell him I'm not, and calls me son to this day. I think mainly as a bit, but I think a little part of him believes that I could, that I'm in the community. So shout out to them and everybody who was involved in this project, the actual deli owners and the people of that community. We're actually really excited that we were doing this. Hopefully they see it and think it's really cool. That was the Baltic and Bonn Deli. In case anybody wants to go and take pictures and think that's super cool, you can say you knew us when we were just the web series. But yeah, folks, thanks for watching. I'm excited to share this with you and future behind the scenes videos. If you haven't seen Peas in a Pod Season 1, it is available on YouTube and Vimeo and Starable.com. So go check that out.